I need to do this. So let's move to the next speaker, Stephen Helland. So Stephen really like a quick introduction, so I'll try my best. Try to finish it once this. So Stephen worked as a partner in technology translation, IP, and also AI in this law firm company called Fredrickson, and I try to approximate that, right? So I think today Stephen is going to share his perspective on AI governance, not quite from national point of view, but actually from individual corporation point of view. Stephen, please.
Great, thank you. And I'll say I'm delighted to be here. I'll just actually piggyback on Dr. Nang's comments of just a few moments ago, which I'm delighted that I got to follow her. And some of the themes will hopefully resonate in different ways, or maybe will clash in some ways, and that might be interesting as well. One of the themes I think will be consistent is this idea of overhype. And let me just say, for those of you who are advising companies or startups, or I suppose even the university or not-for-profit organization, we're starting to see that flow through into law, right? There have now been cases brought by the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, against businesses that overhyped the role of AI in their particular product. And I'm talking here I'm not focused on healthcare. My work as a law firm partner is across industries. My probably primary clients are, I'll say, startups to mid-market, kind of in like the $5 million a year in revenue to about $1 billion. And I'm advising across the board. The perspective that I bring today is, I'll say, very sort of qualitative. I'm the person that works with businesses when they actually do implement AI or decide to implement AI. I'm advising the board of directors what they want to say is their policy as they implement a policy. I'm helping organizations negotiate with vendors. Again, occasionally, my path along this journey was I probably negotiated health electronic medical records agreements with like scores and scores of vendors that kind of has moved from there over to AI. Again, now it's across industries for me. And so that's, I'll say, a little of the very applied piece is what I bring. I'm not an academic, I'm not a researcher. I'll occasionally point to the research of others where I think it resonates with my own clients' kind of direct or lived experience in implementing or considering these policies. So yeah, but I'll offer, like I see, a few things like tips. One is be careful because we see the overhype, both the Federal Trade Commission bringing actions, those tend to be public, but also privately in the investor world, right? There have been a few public lawsuits by investors that claim that the organization overhyped while they were raising money. Many more of those things happen. I can't name clients, but I'll say behind the scenes, people who are over-aggressive when they're raising funds to launch their AI tool, some of those have come back to bite them when they were making claims without substantiation. The other thing that I'll mention to this audience here, because we're like housed and sponsored by the Data Science Initiative, and I think the role of the computer science folks is significant here. Some folks wonder, where is the resistance coming from? Like, you understand the appeal of these tools, but like, let me just remind everyone here that for those that are involved in business, there actually is substantial pushback on these tools and reservations. Dr. Nang mentioned like the kind of exhaustion or fatigue from overhyped AI tools that's been going on for a couple of decades. That's true across industries. As we think about AI more recently, I'll say the number of large consumer-facing organizations that were working on their own kind of customer service chatbots were substantial before ChatGPT 3.5 was released. With that release, tens or hundreds of millions of dollars of internal business R&D efforts were kind of flushed down the toilet or redirected because that work was now rendered out of date or not as useful as going different paths. People lost their jobs. Similarly, right, in the world of, I'll take like health AI in particular, but again, this is true across platforms and across technologies and industries, that there's both a huge pull or desire to start adopting some of these tools. At the same time, if you invest in the wrong one and they're not in business 1 or 2 years later, you've blown your entire IT project or budget for that year, or at least a substantial piece of it, and people are also losing their jobs and making the wrong bets too early on. All right, with those like kind of follow-on comments, really appreciating Dr. Nang's comments. I think I've mentioned where I come from, right, as a lawyer who's advising clients. I'll also mention just my appreciation and thanks to the University of Minnesota. You're, by the way, our #1 source of supplier of talent, of new attorneys at our law firm. My office is 1 mile that way. We're 400 lawyers. We're actually the largest firm in terms of employing attorneys here in the state of Minnesota. We work across industries, and we're delighted that you keep doing what you're doing. I also really appreciate you're bringing together people from healthcare, academia, non-government organizations. This has really been a great thing. So let me just say to those who are on the faculty at the university here, please keep reaching out. I know that those of us in business don't always respond right away, but let's keep collaborating because I think that the role of the university is really significant in these spaces. Let me do a final shout out to Haley Borak, who is one of the organizers here, who's been so great in kind of creating connections. Haley, are you in the room? Okay, I don't see her right now, but she's been fabulous. So Haley, thank you. All right, on this last slide, boy, I've been a long time on this one slide. Let me just point at the date, June 12, 2025, that's today. We'll timestamp this talk. Everything that I say, these are my own personal views, not those of my law firm, not those of any of my clients. This is not legal advice, I'm required to say that. Also, with June 12, 2025, things are changing quickly. We all know that. One of my tips, if I can offer a tip to those of you who, again, are involved in the AI governance process for your organization, if you have an AI policy at your organization and it's more than 12 months old, I bet 25% of my clients that I've helped build an AI policy or an AI governance process have come back to revisit, probably more of it on their own. If it's more than 12 months old, dust it off and take a look. Now, I'll see if I got my clicker to work. All right, who am I? I've told you who I am and what my perspective is, what my biases are, and I will fully, but I'm heavily biased because I live on advising businesses. I'm sometimes limited by that. Let me ask a question. Also, one of the things that this talk is not going to be is a compliance checklist. I'm going to hit, I think, a few anecdotes and stories that I hope resonate in your own process through the AI governance path and AI policy adoption. There was a fabulous talk yesterday, if you missed it, by Alina Kyriakides, who's from Georgetown Law, talking about privacy law and AI law. I'll hit a few of the same points, but if you want a deeper dive, her talk was fantastic. All right, so I did not get this letter, but I've gotten a lot of letters like this letter. This is, the topic here is what's driving AI organization, what's driving AI adoption and governance from the very local organizational level. It's letters like this. This is a letter from the General Counsel, Stephen Crowley, who used to teach, actually he taught one of the classes I took at Michigan Law a long time ago, but he moved over to Ford Motor Company, and he's now the General Counsel, and wrote a letter to all of his outside law firms. And that letter said, right, AI looks like it can be super useful in helping increase efficiency, increase quality. So please write back to me and tell me, right, specifically, I would appreciate hearing from you on how you're using AI to better serve our office and reduce the cost of legal service delivery. Okay, let me promise you, if you're the partner and Ford is your client, you get this letter, it has your attention immediately. And you're gonna go to your executive committee at your firm and say, what are we doing to answer this question exactly? This question is coming not only to me as a law firm, this letter or versions of it are going to many, many of my clients. All right, where their customers are saying, I hear about these things about AI, I'm seeing the hype that Dr. Nong referred to earlier, right? What are you going to do to make it happen to deliver better, cheaper, faster? So there's a very strong driver for adoption. Now, I don't think it's overhyped, but I want to call out, do a shout out here to some really actually fantastic done here at the University of Minnesota Law School. These are 2 law review articles written by faculty here on the use of AI tools, specifically in the practice of law. Again, I think a number of the lessons or takeaways are applicable across industries, but really great work here. Let me just ask, are any of these authors in the room right now? I just want to say thank you because this work has been fantastic. All right, no, well, if you're watching online, again, props to you. So, 2 themes here, right? Again, and the theme here is what's driving AI adoption and AI governance by organizations. The first one, ChatGPT goes to law school. So back in 2023, as early as an earlier model, 95, I believe it was 95 multiple choice questions, 12 essays were then mixed in with actual student answers for blind grading. And again, that early version of ChatGPT got, I think it was an average of C+ when graded by University of Minnesota law professors. Since then, it's only gotten better, right? You've all probably seen the headlines of how good ChatGPT and other tools can be at doing things like taking the bar exam and doing other tasks. So it's impressive. Equally, or to me, actually, now here, like as a consumer, as a hirer of talent from this university, I particularly appreciated the AI Tools for Lawyers, a practical guide. This was Professor Schwartz, again, still here at this law school. Professor Choi used to be here, now has moved out to California, talking about how particularly these tools can be used, what are better use cases, what are less good use cases. Let me say, again, to those of you in your own organizations that are thinking about AI governance, training, of course, has to be huge because there is wide discrepancy between both tasks AI tools so far can be good at and not so good at. Let me just also say out loud, I'm aware that at least a number of the professors at your law school here are affirmatively teaching law students how to use AI tools in their practice of law. Please keep doing this. And if you are at another organization, let me say as an employer who's going to interview your students, I want universities to, as one of their roles, be training people who are entering the workforce in the responsible and effective and efficient use of AI. And it means both like using it and then also checking your work. All right, what are some of the other drivers of AI tools? Fear of missing out. I'll also say another way of saying this is the competitive edge, right? Plenty of my clients feel like if they don't start adopting AI tools and incorporating into their business, that it's an existential crisis, right? That they will go out of business. So when we talk about then some of the concerns, some of the risks, some of the governors of data privacy, of ethics, those are restraining forces. And they have a hugely important role. But let me just say out loud to people here, right? The competitive demand to get it done and start doing it is gigantic. And those two forces are in tremendous tension with one another. I don't have an answer there. I'll just want to be really explicit about that. That's a huge driver. And maybe I'll just give us an explicit example, right? Not from my own client, but from the very public case of, again, ChatGPT, but probably all the models that they've been training on. I think it is coming to light that many of those models were trained on kind of the whole internet, right? And sometimes even pieces of the dark web, where many pieces of information and data there were never intended to be trained on. Some of them were private. Virtually all of them are copyrightable and protectable. But the demand to be an early mover and get it done was an irresistible force and opportunity. And that creates some ethical challenges and legal challenges. All right, where are we? So another piece, this is less applicable to me and my firm, but it's more perhaps society-wide. It was interesting, again, hearing Dr. Nong talk about use of AI in healthcare to potentially improve outcomes and across the digital and healthcare divide. So lawyers are expensive. And if we go back to the work done by the University of Minnesota, I can have a conversation with researchers of who's better, ChatGPT or a University of Minnesota law student or Steve Helland, right, in my field of practice. And I can maybe say with a straight face, I think I'm better in my particular domain because like I'm pretty good. But you know what? To most of the world, that's utterly irrelevant because the rates that I charge, which are several $100s an hour, right, most people can't afford that. And do I have it on the slide? Right. For at least 50 million Americans, I'd suggest the number is significantly higher. Many of their legal problems are not addressed. So part of what is, I think, so enticing and appealing to me as well about AI is that maybe it can provide better access to certain things where, again, people like lawyers have a monopoly on the practice of law. Maybe it can democratize the provision of legal services. Now, there's a challenge with that, right? And the challenge is quality. Because there are certain things, well, actually, let me give out for instance, right? And this goes to how legal aid, because they are under the most pressure to deliver services faster to individuals who are maybe underserved or not served at all, they're taking more risks. I'm actually thinking some of the most interesting work in the implementation and adoption of AI tools is done by legal aid because of their need to move quickly. But if I were you, I would not yet use an AI tool or ChatGPT, right, to draft my own will. or do other significant decisions because the quality assurance simply isn't there. All right, so if you are me, Steve Helland, as I'm guiding my own firm in our use of AI tools, or if you are your organization, I'm going to say you are simultaneously receiving two very challenging different signals, right? You're having Ford Motor Company who's saying you must use AI. Tell me how you're using it, or I'm going to find a different law firm. And again, all of my clients across industries are having that same thing. I suspect that for those who are on faculty or administration here at the university, you are having parents, or maybe, like I say, employers like me saying, really, I want you to train your students in the use of AI. That's critical. On the same time, we have multiple forces saying, don't use AI. That same week that I showed you the Ford Motor Company letter, last week I got a similar to the Ford Motor Company letter from one of my clients saying, you must use AI, tell me how you're going to make it cheaper. The next day I got a letter from a different client saying, you may not use AI on any of our projects unless you have specific written permission, and you've got to silo our data and silo our contracts, and they cannot be used to train anything. All right? Those things are hard to manage. Again, here's now like on my tip category. If you're involved really in the weeds on AI governance, you're going to have to be very careful with data governance because you're going to have different piles of data that can or cannot, by contract or by law, be used for different things. I'm just going to take a second here how I'm doing on time. Doing okay. All right. Here, right, so this is kind of my and my client's lived experience, but I will point to the survey that was, I thought, very nicely done by McKinsey of what are the perceived risks, right? What are some of the perceived inhibitors within organizations? And you've probably seen these headlines before, but we'll walk through them because these very much resonate with my clients, right? Inaccuracy, cybersecurity, IP infringement, we'll talk more about that later, legal compliance, privacy, explainability, right? If we feed the same prompt in 2 or 3 times to an AI tool, we're sometimes getting different answers. Again, if that's for like my teenage daughter's paper on the causes of the Revolutionary War, okay, you know, maybe it's the difference between a B and a B plus or an A on different answers. If it is in one of Dr. Nong's cases of how should a clinician react in a healthcare setting, getting different answers after the same prompt input, that's pretty concerning. Additional concerns here. One of the things that this does not capture particularly well that I want to mention are values. And I don't know that many of the surveys capture those. So one, and there are 2 pieces of that. One is all, and this maybe shows up a little bit in workplace displacement, but organizations like mine are deeply concerned about AI taking away training opportunities for more junior people in our organizations. I cut my teeth as a young lawyer doing tasks that actually AI might be pretty good at, right? It's very simple contracts, reading them again and again, sorting through diligence, large piles of documents. And if AI takes away those training opportunities, I'm not quite sure what the new associates at my firm are going to cut their teeth on. I think this is probably true across a relatively wide array of knowledge work, that if AI is replacing people, what are we going to train on? And I hear people say, right, I hear AI promoters sort of say, like, well, you know, you'll work in tandem with the tools. I'm not so sure that a junior person can jump straight into supervising the AI because that the problems or issues are going to stand out, right? I think you kind of need to have done the work for a while. So training the next generation, an opportunity for the next generation, that's also an inhibitor that organizations are not necessarily talking about. The other is particularly in my area, right? So a lot of my clients are kind of software, tech creators, but also media. I work with authors, I work with artists, and the whole realm of AI, because it was trained on these gigantic bodies of content without consent in virtually all cases, the whole thing is a little bit tainted and the whole thing is a little bit suspect. People don't love it. If there's one of the seminal cases in this area that I think will weigh in on, you know, are the tools legal or do they improperly infringe, is from, it was like about 15 years ago. It was the Google Books case, the National Authors Guild versus Google. And that is where all the authors got together and they said, hey, Google, we understand that you're scanning all the books in the whole world and you're going to input it into Google Book and make it searchable. And the author said, no, that is an illegal copying. Under copyright law, that is not allowed. The way that that case turned out, right, is the court found that that was a fair use. It was a transformative use. Many people are suggesting that that same reasoning will apply to the training of AI, that those that train AI systems on the work of others, even without permission, will be permitted. That case has not yet been decided. I'll point to a couple of specifics later on. We'll see how it goes. But my point here is simply that there are plenty of folks that find AI distasteful because it's, in a sense, the fruit of the poisonous tree. All right, other concerns. I could find a new article on this topic like every day of the week where some lawyer cites a non-existent case or makes a false submission to a court in various documents. And here, let me make a comment about, I think, again, for those who are doing research, if anyone in this room is doing research, the difference between a mistake or like passing the bar exam, I can accept that AI does a very good job at doing things like, well, at a variety of things, including passing a bar exam or writing essays. But here's the thing, like if I'm reviewing the work by a junior associate at my firm and I see a memo that she has written to me, if her analysis is a little bit weak, I can usually catch that because the mistake that she's going to make is not going to be utterly fabricating the existence of a case, right? She's not going to do that. Whereas these AI tools in their hallucinations may cite a non-existent case for a proposition that it doesn't support. And those, because the output looks kind of legalish and it's well done and there's no grammatical or spelling errors, they're more difficult to catch, right? What I'm going to have to do is actually now go up or make sure that she, the person who drafted the memo for me, actually did go back and check all the case citations for what they claim they actually cited for. And by the time you do that work, the time savings isn't nearly what some people suggest they're going to be. All right, here are some of the cases that I was referring to earlier. Two themes here, again, for your own organization's consideration of how you implement or don't implement AI. The first is the right in the, I've got to like sort of stretch here to see my own slide. Actually, look at it down here, right? Okay, so the first is that the output, the raw output of generative AI tools is non-copyrightable and non-patentable. I'll talk more about that in a second. We've got decisions. This is for all the things that are unknown in the legal world. Courts and the Copyright and the U.S. Patent Office have been quite clear on these two items, and there are citations up there. The other goes to what I was talking about earlier, which is, are the models, are they trained on data validly in this country? And those lawsuits are working their way through the system right now. Those are the bottom two cases. There are many, many others like it. All right, let me talk more about the real applied challenge if your organization wants to use AI tools to generate output that you're actually going to use in terms of there being non-copyrightable and non-patentable. So what we've consistently heard is that to be ownable intellectual property, it has to be the product of a human author, of a human creator. And the consistent finding so far is that the raw output of an AI tool is not the output of a human author. That's true even if humans spent a great deal of time crafting the particular prompts that went into generating the output. And so if you're going to read like one thing that I think is actually pretty good reading, it is the Zarya of the Dawn case. So you could just Google that, Zarya of the Dawn. So that was a graphic novel written some number of years ago, and I've got the name of the author here. Kristina Koshchanova was the author. And so she wrote this graphic novel, and she wrote all the words and the dialogue and the text, and then she also had the art, and she, as many authors did, then sent a copy off to the U.S. Copyright Office and said, I'd like copyright protection on this so that others have to pay me royalties or get a license if they want to use it or do anything with it. That was granted. That's very much pro forma at the Copyright Office, right? There's not a whole lot to it. Well, it also turns out that she went to some bars and maybe conferences or wherever and talked about her new novel and said, you know, I wrote all the words, but the art, I used Midjourney was the tool that she used. And so she's like, I didn't create any of the art myself. I prompted it through Midjourney and repeated the story a number of times. Well, guess what? Someone took that information back to the US Copyright Office And then the US Copyright Office said, I'm not so sure what we think about this. And so they wrote back and forth with her extensively, and then her lawyer saying, tell us more about how AI generated this. The ultimate upshot was that although she still holds the copyright in the words or the text of this, she does not own, no one owns the images. All right, what does that mean? That means that if I wanted to take that image and put it on the front of a box of cereal, I could do that, right? Any of you could do that. No one owns it. So how is that important to you? Well, I'll give one example. If you are using a generative AI tool to create software, right? Maybe software that is important or essential to your organization. If you make extensive adaptations to that software, then it is copyrightable and you can own it. We do not yet have clear guidance on how much adaptation or modification you have to make for you to own it. But at least the initial raw output, it is not owned by you, it is not copyrightable. Now, so again, let's imagine that you've built an app or a website or a tool or maybe an image that's important to your organization. Let me now promise you, because part of me is a deal lawyer, when it comes time to sell your company or do a transaction, there's a thing called the diligence process where I get to ask you a whole bunch of questions about your business. And I'll look for your cash flow. I'll ask you, of course, in great detail about your core IP, your core intellectual property. And I will now ask you, because this is a standard question, was any generative AI or other AI tool used in the creation of your intellectual property? And you'll have to answer that question. And if you answer falsely, it can unravel and spoil the whole deal. If your answer is yes, we have used generative AI in order to produce some of our core IP, the deal is going to hit pause. Now, it's not necessarily going to kill it, but it means that now consultants will be brought in, and we're going to have to kind of go through your whole development process to see, do you actually own, and are you in a position to sell perhaps one of the core assets of your organization? All right. After that, warning to be careful. Another challenge in implementing IP and AI in your organization is, where does it start? If your organization has an AI policy, there's probably a better than 50-50 chance that it started with someone on the board of directors of your organization, or the governing entity or piece of your organization said, let's go do this. We need to be involved in AI. The challenge is that boards of directors, although they are ultimately tasked with oversight and governance of the whole organization, like the legal buck stops there, and you see, right, kind of the board of directors oversees the CEO, and the CEO sees other officers, committees, and divisions and departments, et cetera. And that's true both, generally speaking, for profit and not-for-profits. Not always true of very small startups, don't always have a board of directors. But in any case, my point here is that those who start the ball rolling, boards of directors are oftentimes quite good at certain elements of governance, but AI is something they know nothing or next to nothing about. So again, my invitation or encouragement to you is that if you are a technologist or a policy advisor within your organization, please take your time to clearly explain to those you're reporting to on the board how AI works. Don't assume that they know, and be open to answering questions. All right, look, I'm almost at like 5 minutes now. All right, let's hit just a few other, quickly, so we have at least a minute or two for questions. We talked previously, there's some laws. And if you're developing an AI system, your legal compliance is going to have to be a big piece of it. The first law that's going to happen is going to be the, what did I say? Yeah, the Colorado Act. That actually is in place now. And like I say, if you're a developer, there will be significant pieces to that. All right. Actually, I'll only mention this one for bias, right? So have a team, have someone in charge in your organization's own journey through AI governance. I asked, again, ChatGPT for, you can see my prompt, right? Create an image of a diverse work team in a work setting. And this is the output. And I guess you could sort of say it checks a certain box. I'll say it checks a certain box so long as you don't mind that like everyone is like really attractive, middle-aged, probably upper middle class, no one's disabled, no one is old, no one's particularly young. So, I guess diversity within a certain lens. Prioritize what AI is good at, because you can't pursue everything. McDonald's has been very candid. There was actually a speaker in town about a month ago. They tried to roll out an ordering chatbot. They worked on it for a couple of years, and it just didn't work. So what I would say to you is try to find things that you think for your organization, the risk is tolerable, the tools that you can find have some confidence of success, because you hate, again, particularly if you're a small or mid-sized organization like my clients, if you put all of your chips on a certain thing, it may not pan out. Okay. Elements of an AI policy. Obviously, these slides are available online. They are not a checklist, but they're a good starting point. All right, this is my final point. I'll stick around if there are questions afterwards. These terms, AI governance and AI policy, are getting a lot of traction. However, there's been work done in other contexts. This is with regards to constitutions, and that the granting of rights in constitutions or other legal documents, actually, there's no clear correlation to rights in practice. And so I would kind of challenge all of us involved in the world of AI governance to really ask that question at the end of the day, right? I'm a person who's written hundreds of data privacy policies. I've reviewed hundreds of data privacy policies. I follow when there are breaches. I will tell you that for every major breach that has happened, or virtually every major data privacy breach, every single one of those organizations had a privacy policy of some kind. But what did it amount to? And so again, I'll kind of challenge all of us collectively together to see if our governance processes are strong enough to resist my earlier slide on the competitive demand to do things now for the existential fear that your business will collapse or go away, because those will be challenging efforts. So good luck to you in that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions?
Yeah, I have a question. So there's the legality of where the AI company got their information from, but my question is, if I'm using an AI model that's already been trained, sometimes I try to genericize or anonymize the information I'm putting into my prompt because I'm concerned about like PII or PHI or IP leaking out, and is that a valid concern of mine? Does that, the information I type in, does that become part of the model, or could somebody else query and get that information out that I entered in a prompt?
So that's an excellent question. So first, kudos to you for being like aware of that issue, right? So to all of you, right? And here's a two-part answer. So one, well, different types of data have different levels of regulation, right? So like, for example, like with HIPAA or health data, like you may be prohibited from entering like identifiable health data. And again, I'm not a HIPAA expert, so I won't comment too far on that, but I'll say, particularly in the free version of these tools, like the free version of ChatGPT, they, at least a year ago, like the last time I looked at the terms, they explicitly allow themselves to train on your inputs. So whereas conversely, if you're paying a subscription or if your organization has a subscription to these tools, they tend to say that what you input will remain confidential, remains your data, and will not be the basis of training. But that is a vendor by vendor question. And so one of the things people talk about, like, so my organization, we are slow to roll out these tools because we're very concerned about exactly what you're describing, the data inputs and the very confidential information. Now, the first one we're rolling out is Microsoft, and the reason is because we've become, through our vendor vetting process, comfortable that Microsoft has made enforceable privacy promises to us. It will stay within our silo, it will not be used to train others, and that Microsoft has sufficient checks and balances in place that my prompts and inputs will not be used to kind of regurgitate or kind of show up in others' findings. Now, there's been research done by people, not me, that sometimes really good people, really good computer scientists are able to extract things out. So that's a long answer of saying, I think for an individual person, select your vendor carefully. I would then go forward and probably do it. If you're a researcher, I look forward to you telling us, right, like, how good are these anonymization and confidentiality promises actually holding up?
Right.
Okay.
Oh, there's another.
Okay.
question.
Yeah. Okay. I can go. So I'm curious. Have you guys trialed a localized model? So things like, just pulling DeepSeek offline and then running that locally? Or did you guys jump straight into, looking at Microsoft?
Right, so I'll now talk here just about my own organization, right? Because of course, I've got like 300 clients and they've all done all kinds of things, right? There's a really wide array. So as a large law firm, we have not, to my knowledge, tried to download our own, right? We are looking to, we're looking to the major vendors to kind of give us a legal ready tool. So the answer is no. So I appreciate that question. Is that by asking the question, are you suggesting that you think that could be a fruitful path worth consideration?
Yeah, I think so, because you can be more agile with potentially fine-tuning, doing things like retrieval augmented generation and especially with how quick things are moving, right? You're basically right now at the mercy of Microsoft to use whatever model they choose behind the scene, or as opposed to having more control over an understanding of what you guys actually, what's actually running the show.
So I'll just say, I appreciate that. I'll take that back to the working group that I work in at my firm. I'll say, kind of in full candor, right? A lot of, I'll say, organizations like mine, right? I think we've got a total of like 800 employees, 400 lawyers. That I don't know that we're great at developing and running our own tech tools, kind of from scratch, and so we are generally speaking looking for vendors to kind of come to us with systems that are kind of ready to go and tested. But again, I appreciate your point, and it's well taken.
Thank you. Thank you so much for showing the graph that how the AI governance ball starts from the board of director and then slowly go to the CEO, maybe CIO. As nowadays, so many companies, they try to connect the AI to their company data, but as well the security related with their database, EHR, as well as maybe ERP, the CRM data. So, I mean, just in terms of like, if I was CIO from all these small to medium-sized company, how would you suggest them to approach the this AI policy, AI governance?
So that is an excellent question. And I feel like we should book another a conference, kind of work through all the pieces of it, because there's a lot of that question. Maybe I can just by way of introduction say this, you will need to. I remember my diversity slide that said you'll need a team. I was like, you will need a team. If I were you, I would probably Google around. Actually, some of the law firms have good policies. Some of the larger law firms have good sample policies online. I would start with that. I would, again, if you have an internal legal counsel, I would say include legal as a piece of it, but then get a couple of different stakeholders. I think it's great to have one champion on the board or the C-level. That could be a chief information officer, and start the conversation. And I don't know that, again, I wish I could tell you more or give you a really clear plan. Actually, I'm going to point back to Dr. Nong, who earlier said that the approaches taken by different organizations are really very disparate. And I don't know that there is one size fits all or one right approach, other than sort of start and stay inquisitive and get a range of stakeholders and people around the table. But I appreciate the question. I wish I could give you a better answer.
Yep.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Could you help describe the team on your side who would determine benchmarking of originality of work that's been adapted from AI?
The benchmarking of originality of work by AI. So I'll say, right, so again, I'll just now speak from my own law firm experience. So we've got about 10 people, we've got a lot, on kind of our working group, right? And I don't know that we are measuring originality. I don't know that that's a particular metric. So now what we do is we do measure what I'll call quality or accuracy of outcome. And there, I'll just say, we'll take what we'll do probably among a variety of use cases, right? I'll say maybe write a memo on a very established area of law, and I'll see what cases it cites, right? And I'll know kind of the right answer. maybe a little bit like what folks here at the University of Minnesota were doing in terms of their like ChatGPT goes to law school, right? So I will both ask it like a research question, I might ask a more substantive question, and then a few of us from different practice groups will talk like how is the quality of the output. And we're typically doing that now with like specialized tools. All the, again, Dr. Nong was mentioning like all the like the sales emails that people are getting barraged with. I'm getting barraged with those as well, right? From the major legal players to very niche players. There's way more than I could ever test, so we're kind of starting with like the most well-known, trying a couple, seeing what we think. This is a little bit confidential, but I'll say it anyways. We have not made a determination yet. We are actively engaged in trying out a bunch of different tools. Although this is annoyingly, this goes to like the whole like challenge is a lot of the vendors want me to like pay a ton of money and commit to one direction right now, and it really feels too soon. I mean, so much of what we're talking about here, like on the quality, still feels too soon to know how good AI is going to be. I'm super impressed. Like I remember like with Wonder, my first time trying ChatGPT, and actually some of the proprietary tools that I've tested to do certain legal tasks, and it's awesome. But I also get regularly like badly wrong answers, disastrously wrong answers some portion of the time, and how we will finally implement these in significant ways to do specific legal services remains to be seen. Conversely, there are other tools, again, like these scribing functions. You know what? Taking notes of a conversation, I love that use case. It's already very good, and I think there's lots of applications. That was a meandering answer, but thank you for the question.
We probably got time for the last question before lunch. Any last question? Yeah.
So I love the idea how you started by, a big customer kind of reaching out to you and asking if you will be using AI or how your intentions are to use AI. And yet having another customer that doesn't want you to use AI. And I think we've had those varied kind of responses in regards to healthcare, where we heard earlier during the conference where adoption of AI may actually come from litigation, where patients seeking, did you use AI while making these healthcare decisions? Versus there is still a lot of distrust amongst, patients in healthcare with organizations using AI. So we are seeing the both front of that. In your governance, AI governance team, would you consider having clients? And if you would you consider both segments who are for and against? And should healthcare institutions follow that model and have patients in their AI governance, which we know as of right now, we haven't seen a fair amount of patient representation?
So again, I appreciate all the questions from all the perspectives. You are all kind of encouraging my own thinking of this. So for my own organization, we absolutely take clients on both positions, and we then just are figuring out ways to silo their data, and so that those clients that don't, and we give I have instructions to my team. You cannot use AI for this client, and then what we do for the clients that really want us to use it. That's we're working on that one, right? Your comment also raises the question, though, of for those, some clients say don't use it. There may come a time, and I think the healthcare as well as with law, where if you didn't consult some kind of AI tool as part of your process, you're failing to meet the standard of care, right? Lawyers have a duty of competence, and for me, that means things, right? Like I've got a law library, I look up cases, or these days, really, I have the ability to do research. And so we're not there yet, but right now, I have things like bar associations and ethics organizations telling me, Steve, be really careful with how you use AI. I can imagine a future not so far away where some of these organizations are saying, okay, respect the wishes of individual clients that say don't, but as an organization, if you fail to train and have resources available, it's either legal malpractice or you failed to meet the standard of care. So we'll be interested to sort of see where, to be continued.
All right, thank you very much again, Spian. And thanks to all of you for the great question and discussion. Now you can brace the lunch.